Hello YouTube, this is Brian Mounts. I run turfmechanic.com and the Turf Mechanic YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about putting seed down. Not necessarily how to put seed down, but I want to tell you how to water it. A lot of people come over to my website asking the question whether or not you can overwater grass seed. Well, the answer is yes. You can leave the video now if you want to. Yes, you can overwater grass seed. Grass seed definitely needs water to germinate and sprout and start growing up, and then the grass blades definitely need a good deal of water for the root systems to be able to grow down into the soil and stay healthy, vibrant. But you can't go overboard. So if you've been onto my website, I've got a very lengthy article on watering grass seed and not overwatering it, but I wanted to show you how I do it. This is a small patch of grass that I have. I shouldn't say it's grass. This is a small patch of yard space that I am transforming into grass. It's going to take a good year probably to really clean up all the weeds and grow the seeds. But as I put grass seed down, certainly you could use a spreader, and if you're using a larger area, then you would definitely use a spreader. But for small patchy areas like this, just hand sprinkling it is fine. This time of year, it's early summer. I don't actually expect a lot of this seed to take or to make it through the summer, but I do want to close up some of the holes at least a little bit, if possible. When it comes to watering, the best way to not water too much is to do an excessive amount of watering before you put the seed down. I don't know if you can tell, but this soil is already wet. So I have above ground sprinklers up here that I've started using. And yesterday I put them on for a lengthy period of time. I want to say it was about 4 hours. Now I don't water up here very often, but I do water up here extremely heavy every couple weeks or so. As the weeds start turning into grass, then I'm going to start changing that a little bit. And what I mean is, as I can get more weeds away and more grass growing, then the watering habits that I have up here will change. But for the sake of this video, I watered heavily, about 4 hours worth yesterday. So now the ground is very, very wet. A lot of the water has sunk down into the ground, and that basically means that the grass seed that I just put on the ground is sitting on moist soil. So whenever I water it, I don't need to water enough for the water to go into the soil. And that makes a big difference. Grass seed needs to be moist to germinate. Grass seed needs to be touching the soil for it to germinate, but grass seed can't be too wet. You can't put an above ground sprinkler and nail it with water for long periods of time. It can't be an aggressive sprinkler, because as the water droplets hit, it will hit the grass seed and move it. It will physically move across the ground. And as it moves across the ground, so if I have a sprinkler here and the water is coming down at an angle, it's going to hit all of these grass seeds and slowly move it all this way. And you're going to end up having clumping. Anytime that there's like a topography change where there's like a lump, all of the grass seed is going to push towards that lump, and you're going to have a lot of grass here and no grass here. So if you're watering heavily with a large overhead sprinkler, you've got to watch out for that. Now, one way to combat that is to put seed starter. Some people use coconut coir, some people use peat moss. We do gardening here, so I have seed starting mix left over from the spring. So basically I'm just going to break up the chunks and sprinkle that over the top. Now this variety of seed starting mix, oh boy, that's dry. This variety of seed starting mix has a tiny amount of nutrients in it as if you were, you know, planting seeds for the garden. And so it doesn't have a lot, but it's got a little bit in it, and that's going to be good for the baby grass seeds, baby grass plants as they start coming up. So I've sprinkled this over the top. Not a lot, but it's enough to help the seeds stay in contact with the soil. Seeds are never going to germinate if they're not actually contacting the soil. So if they're kind of like sticking up a little bit, leaning up against rocks, sitting on top of existing grass or weed leaves, it's not really going to take. Now, as the water hits it from a sprinkler or from your hose or however it is that you're watering it, it will sink down and eventually touch the ground. But you do want constant contact as much as possible to help germination rates. Now, the seed starting mix helps with that because it helps sit on top of the grass, protecting it a little bit from flying water, so water droplets, airborne water droplets, and it will help keep the seed in place a little bit. But the point of this video is don't overwater your grass seed. So if you have water in excess going onto your grass seeds, for one, the impact will move your seeds. If you've got pooling water, so if you're watering too long on any one stretch for grass seeds and water starts pooling on the ground, the grass seeds themselves can start floating and moving, and then you'll have that same clumping problem again. If, for instance, this isn't the case here, but if, for instance, this area was a depression, so the ground around it was a little bit above, like raised above this area, you might have standing water problems. For one, you'd have some pooling, but all of the drainage might be going into this area, and all of the dirt here would be kind of a muddy, swampy kind of area if you're watering it too much. And that, in and of itself, even if you don't have pooling or traveling grass seed, that alone can cause rot. I mean, your seeds can be sitting on the ground too wet all the time and too wet of soil, and they will just rot right there in the ground. They won't ever germinate. So with grass seed, you definitely have to water it frequently. It's really easy to go on the internet, search for tutorials on how to do this, and find guides that tell you to come out and spray the water down twice a day. Quite honestly, I don't think that works very well. This, climate-wise, is not the right time to be putting down grass seed. I fully understand that. In the optimal time, grass seed will still dry out over the course of a day. I mean, there's wind movement, things will, water evaporates, it gets hot, it gets cold at night. The grass seed is going to germinate better if it stays consistently moist. So what I like to do is come out in an area like this and spray it down lightly, like very lightly, with a hose on a mister setting, and spray it for about a minute or so just to moisten it up, because I know it's sitting on moist soil already. So I just want to keep the top area from drying out. So as wind and airflow goes over the top, it's going to dry out the top of the grass seed, whereas the bottom is still sitting on moist soil. So if I just keep that top area moist, it's going to germinate better. But I don't need to add very much. Now, I'll come out and do that every couple hours over the course of a day. And that always ends up in grass seed germinating better for me. Do not ever overwater. It's just not it's not in your best interest. Don't think to yourself, I'm gonna put some grass seed down and then put a lot of water on it and hope that that will last for the duration of the day. It's much better to just get up in the morning, spritz it go about your day, come back out, maybe at lunchtime, spritz it again, go about your day, come back out at dinner time, spritz it again, have dinner, get the kids to bed, then come back out and spritz it again before you go to bed yourself. That's 4 times a day right there. If you can do it even more often than that, then that's even better. Another option, which isn't going to work in this environment, but it might work in smaller patches. So if you've got like a dead patch, just one little patch, I like to do this, exactly what you've seen, and then I'll spritz it really good, but not like too much, and then I'll cover it. I'll cover it usually with like a plastic container or some sort of like miniature greenhouse like thing, and that keeps the humidity inside really high, and it stops the airflow from going over the top of it, so it slows down evaporation and it keeps everything moist, and everything germinates so much faster. In this patch is just too big to do that. Like, I would have to construct something out of like wood, and I've got some greenhouse plastic that I could use, but I need to build a frame for it, and I just don't think it's worth it because we're going into summer right now. I'll probably have to reseed this again a little bit in the fall. So what I want to leave you with is watering frequently is very important, but not watering too much at any one time is extremely important. I wouldn't put an aggressive sprinkler on grass seed at all. I would always do it by hand. Now, if I'm going to do an entire yard, then that's different. I would get special sprinklers that really are soft. I don't know how to describe it more than that. Like, it's a soft spray, almost like a fine mist. There are misting sprinklers available that you can set up, and those will do a lot better because they'll evenly apply water to the grass seed, but not in an aggressive, abrasive manner, and not fast enough for the water to pool on the ground. The rest is kind of up to you. You just got to make sure that you're applying it frequent enough that the seed doesn't dry out, but never applying too much to make it oversaturated. With that, I'm going to leave it right there. This video is long enough. Please subscribe to this channel. I've got other tutorials and guides and things like this to help you with your lawn care, and I also have a lot of material on composting and gardening and lawn care. That's my thing. If I could be outside all day, every day, I would. I hope you subscribe and follow along. Thank you.